What I can say about my mother? First of all, she was a very, very clever woman.
My mother was born in 1907 in Rembatov to her parents, Shmuel Rubin, and her mother, Teila. Her maiden name was Strachovisky. And she was the second daughter in the Rubin family. Her older brother was Hirsch, and then she had another 8 brothers and sisters. You can tell right away that she came from a quite wealthy family. Her father was a supplier of the Polish army, first maybe of the Russian army and then of the Polish army, that had a military camp in Rembatov.
She was 82 when she passed away. She didn't speak about Rembatov. Of course, it was not a secret for us, but we were not grown up on this story.
When she was about 14 years old, her parents decided to send her to study in Warsaw. So she was sent to the Landau Gymnasium in Warsaw, and every morning she would take the train to Warsaw and come back. Think of a girl, a Jewish girl of 14 who leaves the shtetl and sees for the first time many different people who never lived in Rembatov. She studied there for 3 years. When she was 17, her father told her, "You're not going to the gymnasium anymore. I want you to join me and to be part of the business." She was very sad about it. She was asked to get a job and to work with them in the bank. This was her opportunity to learn about finance and to have a lot of contacts with people. Well, the days went by and she became a grown-up girl. It was time to get married. And she had a fiancé. She was engaged. And this young man went to the United States. And he said, "After I establish myself in the United States, you will come and join me." She didn't like this idea because at that time, she belonged to the Mizrahi movement. It was part of the Zionist organizations. And the Mizrahi organization had youth movements. One of the youth movements was HaShomer HaDati. The Shomer HaDati was for boys and girls. It was a mixed organization. But the girls in HaShomer HaDati were considered second-rate. They were not as important as the boys. At that time, there was a new movement, a movement of religious young women called Bruria. So she joined this movement. Remember that she had a fiancé in the States? This engagement was broken because she didn't want to go to the state. We are reaching now the year 1933. She realizes that she has no future in Poland. She's a Zionist and she wants to go to the land of Israel, to Palestine, as it was called in these days. But she has no chance of getting a certificate. In those days, in Palestine, there was the British mandate. Anyone who wanted to get a certificate had to go through a special training, agricultural training. Now, she lived in Rembatov. She had no chance of having an agricultural training in Rembatov. And to go to distant places, how could she? She belonged to an Orthodox religious family. Her father had a long beard. She had to stay at home until she gets married. So she had no chance to go to these training places. Another chance was to get married to someone, to a man who got a certificate. And they did some kind of faked marriage. But her father was a Kohen. Kohen is a man who is not allowed to marry a divorced woman. And her father wouldn't let her be a divorced. There was another way, to pay 1,000 sterling, 1,000 pounds, English pounds, to the mandate. to the British mandate. But it was an enormous sum of money, so this was also not an option for her. And then she had an idea. She will build a kibbutz. A kibbutz is some kind of a cooperative. A kibbutz only for women, for girls from the Bruria organization. She spoke to her friends, and she managed to convince 8 girls, 7 girls, because with her they were 8. And 8 girls founded this kibbutz. The name of the kibbutz was La Matara. La Matara means to the goal, to achieve the goal.
We grew up not knowing this specific and unique story of Kibbutz La Matara. The idea of the kibbutz was in Poland, but when they came to Israel, and families needs kindergarten, my mother brought the solution for that. After that, if elementary school has to be established, again, my mother was the projector of this task. So she did many, many big things, but we were grown up in a very quiet house, regular way.
How they started? She had some money. She rented a house in Rembatov. In this house, they lived. In this house, they had also their factory, the kibbutz. How did they make a living? All the girls of the kibbutz were dressmakers, so they could make dresses for the wives of the officers in the military camp. She was not a dressmaker at all, but she was a businesswoman. So she was like the manager of this kibbutz, and the girls worked there. They worked from morning till 7 o'clock in the evening. Then they had an hour for supper and an hour for rest. And at 8 o'clock, they started studying. If you look at the diary, you can see that this kibbutz had protocols, had everything written down. Then every day they described how they lived their life in the kibbutz. So they studied in the evening. What did they study? They studied Hebrew literature, Jewish history, also religion and press. Because she said you have to be up to date, you have to know what's going on. In this way, they lived in the kibbutz for 1.5 years. But during all this time, she was not acknowledged by the Zionist organization. They said, this is not a kibbutz according to the criteria of the Zionist organization, and you are not allowed to get certificates. She said, okay, if you refuse, I'll do it my way. She went to Warsaw, and she invited reporters and journalists from all the main Jewish newspapers in Warsaw. And she made a big meeting in the kibbutz. She said 8 girls is not enough. And when they had this big meeting press, she had 17 girls standing there. And she got 17 certificates, which was a miracle in those days. On the day of the immigration, the whole shtetl came to see these girls walking to the railway station. And the Jewish orchestra was playing in public. So the girls were walking with their suitcases. The people, the families were following them, and they came to the railway station in Rembatov on their way to Warsaw and then to Constanța in Romania. It took them some time, and they came 4 days before Pesach to Jaffa. After a week, they rented the house, not a house, an apartment in Tel Aviv, and they continued the kibbutz of the dressmakers for another 2 years. Mother decided to go back to Poland, to Rembatov, to bring her family. She came back here, spoke to her father, to her parents, and she said, please, come and join me. Her father was well-to-do. He had a business. It was hard for him to join her. So her brother, Yaakov, joined her, and they went back to Israel. And the parents promised, one day we will come to Israel. This day never came. On the 20th of August, 1942, her family was taken to Treblinka from the same place that she used to go to school. They all went to the railway station and were taken to Treblinka. That's the end.
I must say that as a child, I knew nothing because my parents didn't speak about what happened in the Holocaust, what happened to their families. Only when she passed away, or maybe a few years before, when we tried, let's say, to arrange the story of the family, we barely knew about the unique idea of urban kibbutz. We learned and created all the story in the right way just after she passed away. She didn't talk much, but she gave us an examples of what is expected from us by the way that she managed her life. All our families, we are very dedicated, and I'm sure that everything came from her. Although she didn't try to direct us to specific directions, specific ideas, but she was the home. She was our house.
My brother is Shmuel, and my name is Nili. I was born in 1946, a year after the war, after the Second World War. My mother, who gave birth to me, was thinking what name to give to the new baby. And the name Nili is an abbreviation of 4 Hebrew words taken from the Bible. Nili, the first letter, means Netzach, the second, Israel, the third, Lo, and the fourth, Yeshaker. Netzach Israel Lo Yeshaker. It means the eternal God will never lie. It means that God will keep his promise to his people. 3 years later, Shmuel was born, my brother. And when he was born in 1949, she already understood there is no chance that anybody from her family was rescued. So she gave him the name of her father. So Shmuel and Nili. I have the name of Hope, and he has the name of the history of the family.